Today, we move from the Eastern District of Virginia, where you have the unqualified Lindsey Halligan, a Trump loyalist appointee over there, to the Western District of Virginia, where you have two career prosecutors that were forced to resign from their position because they refused to pursue a Trump conspiracy theory about the Russia hoax. And we're going to be talking today about Todd Gilbert and others over there who quit. They were really forced resignations over their refusal to prosecute and look into cases that have no basis and have no merits. This is an important issue about prosecutorial independence, the DOJ, the independence of the DOJ, and the integrity of the DOJ. And we're going to unpack the issues. This has been happening for a little while, but it's getting some attention lately. So we want to uncover some of this stuff. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Before we dive in, remember, hit that subscribe button if you like this content. Share with anyone you think this might be informative or entertaining. Like this video, share your comments. We love hearing your feedback about this as you're watching this. Brian, where do we start with this?
Well, we start with the fact that it's just coming out now why this particular prosecutor, this U.S. attorney who was appointed and I believe confirmed as the U.S. attorney for the Western District of Virginia, resigned. And it turns out it all relates back to the so-called Russian hoax. So we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this morning because we're recording it this morning, because it is kind of old news. I mean, the facts are this goes back to 2016. And recently you've got Kash Patel and Don Bongino who have been out there championing the claim that a bunch of people were actually involved in setting up President Trump to try to be the fall guy for the Russian hoax. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth.
You can't just call it the Russia hoax. You have to say Russia, 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 because that's what Trump says every time he mentions it.
I don't even know, I don't even know how to unpack this. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's that there is no dispute and there's no doubt, and nobody even questions the fact that Russia did meddle in the 2016 election, that Russia did want Trump to win, that Russia did not want Hillary Clinton to win. Those are absolute facts. And the fact is that it was deeply investigated of whether or not anyone in the Trump universe, including Trump himself, was involved. And
right, it was an investigation. It wasn't like it was some malicious prosecution. They didn't prosecute. They investigated. Special Counsel Mueller did an investigation. They did not establish that Trump conspired with Russia, but they confirmed that Russia did interfere with the election through social media propaganda and hacked the DNC and the Clinton campaign. That's it. I mean, that's where it was. That's kind of where it was left. And there was an argument that Trump interfered or obstructed with the investigation, but. That's it. He wasn't exonerated, by the way, for obstructing that investigation. But that's kind of it. There wasn't some wrongful prosecution or anything.
And what happened in the not too distant past is that Tulsi Gabbard comes out and starts waving papers around, which turn out to be nothing more than the Republican response to this, saying, "Look at all these people that were involved: Obama, James Comey, Christopher Wray, the director of the CIA. All these people should be indicted. They engaged in treasonous behavior." And, there's no surprise that this all happens right around the same time as the Epstein deal is going down. And it's a huge distraction. Okay, so let's put that to the side. Now let's talk about, Shant, let's talk about prosecutorial discretion and what, discretion prosecutors have and how that kind of works.
Sure. And I'll talk about that. Just in general, a prosecutor is supposed to be an independent office or an independent person that prosecutes crimes, that brings indictments, that tries cases against criminals, typically in the capacity of a U.S. attorney. They're within their jurisdiction. In this case, what we're talking about is the Western District of Virginia on a federal level for federal crimes, for felonies and things like that. They are the top law enforcement officer. A lot of people think, the FBI or in the case of states, it's the police that are the sort of top law enforcement. They're not, because what they do is they investigate crimes, they put together reports, and they make recommendations or they present it to the prosecution. The prosecutor's office, and in this case, the U.S. Attorney's office, is they're the lawyers. They're the ones that have to present the legal case, because in this country, we have something called due process. We have the legal system. We have the criminal justice system, and it has to go through the courts in order to prosecute someone or, force them to make some kind of a plea deal. So you have the top prosecutor that makes the decisions on whether or not to prosecute something. And you generally, in order for our system to work, you want them to be independent. You don't want them to be going around and just being a minion for whoever's in some particular office. Like, you don't want them to be Trump's personal prosecutor. You don't want Pam Bondi. This is a perfect example. You don't want Pam Bondi acting as a henchman for the president of the United States. But of course, that's exactly what Trump wants.
That's exactly what she's doing. And frankly, I don't want Pam Bondi doing anything, let alone acting as the Attorney General of the United States. And this is a perfect example of why, because we know now that she and Todd Blanche, who's her chief deputy, former Trump lawyer, who came in second in Trump's criminal trial, right? In other words, he lost.
He lost his criminal trial.
Yeah, he lost. That they were putting, their people were putting intense pressure on this Todd Gilbert. And Todd Gilbert, by the way, just as an aside, look, while, we certainly have a lot of criticism of the Trump administration, Todd Gilbert looks exactly like the kind of person you would put in as a U.S. attorney. He was a prosecutor for, I think, 14 years. He was the Speaker of the House in the state legislature in Virginia. He looks like he has an impeccable record. He's a career prosecutor. He goes into this job in July, or gets confirmed at least in July.
And FYI, Republicans loved him. He was kind of like a Republican political star. Right. So before people start accusing us or the left of saying, well, you only like him because he's not. He was a Republican star.
Well, I mean, compare him to his counterpart in the Eastern District of Virginia, the third runner-up for Miss Colorado.
Yeah.
This is a person who actually has real-life prosecutorial experience. And I know prosecutors in other U.S. attorney positions who are Republicans and Democrats, and they're career prosecutors. This guy's a prosecutor. Maybe he's a politician, but he's a prosecutor. So what happens, Shant, is that Blanche and Bondi's people start telling them that they need to either demote or remove this prosecutor by the name of Zachary Lee, a career prosecutor with over 20 years experience. He was hired when George Bush was president, and he was promoted during Trump's first term. And he was leading this investigation. Now, you may ask yourself, why was the Western District of Virginia the location for this investigation? I guess they thought maybe they had a favorable ear there. They would get the prosecution there. But it also had to do with a burn bag of documents that were taken to an FBI location where top secret documents were supposed to be burned. And some of the documents were supposed to be burned involve the Russian investigation.
Which, by the way, before people start saying, well, that sounds a little bit shady. No, this is standard operating procedure. Apparently, this is like a normal thing. They take classified documents, so they're not just floating out there forever. And one of the facilities, it happens to be this one in West Virginia, where they were going to do that. Happens to be in West Virginia, and they put them in this burn bag. It's just a mechanism for destroying these documents. It's not something nefarious.
Right. And it's just where they thought they could anchor the case.
Right.
They thought trying to destroy documents would prove that this was a cover up, et cetera, blah, 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 idiotic. Bye. Goodbye. Yeah. So FBI is involved. Career FBI people are involved. Career prosecutors involved. They look at this, and Mr. Lee comes to the conclusion there's nothing here. There's no case here. We can't prosecute. There's nothing to prosecute. And what happens is they start pressing Todd Gilbert, and they say, get rid of Lee, demote him. So they don't get rid of him, but they demote him. They bring somebody else in there named Robert Tracci, a Trump-aligned former state prosecutor, who also was competing for the same position that Gilbert got. So this is the guy who was going to get Gilbert's job, but Gilbert got it. And he comes in, and then they still are pressing him to prosecute. And Gilbert says, I'm not going to file charges. Now, let's just be honest what this is. This is Letitia James. This is James Comey. This is Adam Schiff. This is, go down the list. These are the people that Trump wants prosecuted, whether they're legitimate prosecutions or not. They want them prosecuted. And I will note, and I think this is, worthy of you to speak to, Sean, is this goes into the category of be careful what you wish for also, because they want to prosecute Obama so badly. They so badly want to prosecute him. But besides there being no case against Obama, there's another problem.
Statute of limitations. And I thought
you were going to jump on this, Sean. the Trump decision.
Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah. Exactly. You have a Supreme Court ruling that basically insulates presidents from liability for things that they did while they were president. Trump, thanks to Trump, presidents have basically been rendered, Teflon. They're bulletproof. Nothing can stick.
I mean,
so,
if it's in the
that's
category,
exactly right.
Be careful of what you wish for.
Yeah.
So.
But also the statute of limitations is also an interesting thing too, Brian. You and I have talked about this before, that this stuff happened so long ago that how are you going to prosecute this stuff now? There's a reason there's a statute of limitations, and you can't get around that. I don't know how they'd get around this. I don't know what they'd go after Obama for and what they could even bring.
There's no case. That's the problem. Yeah. And the problem is consistently with the Trump administration, with the DOJ, with idiot Bondi, is that they believe that, why let the facts get in the way of a good prosecution? If these guys won't do it, we'll find somebody else who will. So here's what just happened. Zachary Lee, I mentioned him earlier. He's now left the office. He resigned. He left the office. And we know that back in August, Gilbert left, but we didn't know why. But now it's all come home, and we know why. It's because he will not do what they're telling him to do. And that's the problem they're having. And so they're going to get rid of people. They told him that if he didn't resign, they would fire him. He decided to resign. And apparently he said he featured a lighthearted social media post, including a GIF from the movie Anchorman saying, boy, that escalated quickly. That was it. So that's all I got on this, Shant.
I'd say hats off to these guys for, having some integrity and not just, we recently talked about how many of these folks, I think when we were talking about Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney here in the Central District, right here in our backyard, we said, look at his background. He's Muslim. You can't believe someone like this would kind of fall in line with the Trump administration. And we concluded maybe it's because they're just opportunists. They're just, they're saying this is a big opportunity for me. I'm glad to see people like Gilbert and Lee, who are career prosecutors, career public servants, having some integrity, having a spine, and saying, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. And I know it was a forced resignation, but clearly these guys didn't want to do these things. So hats off to them. We'll keep, I suspect this is going to keep happening in other places in the country with other prosecutors. And at some point, all these doors keep getting shut on Trump. And I don't know how much luck he's going to have with these persecutions he's trying to roll out all over the place against his political opponents. So good on them. We'll see what happens with other prosecutions he's trying to pursue against his rivals. And we'll keep you posted on this. So thanks for tuning in to another installment of Civil Action. This is the Legal AF Network. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. We're a couple of lawyers based out of California, but doing work all over the country at a firm called Kabateck LLP. So hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this. Hit that like button if you like this video. Feel free to share with anyone, and please give us your feedback. We like hearing from you. Tell us what you want us to cover. If there's something else you want us to unpack, we'd love to do it for you. See you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.